Is liberty dying where you live? Escape to Keene at freekeene.com.
I always tell the truth. So,
are you willing to do so under oath?
I always act as if I'm under oath. So I will tell the truth today to the best of my knowledge. The truth.
Do you swear the testimony you give this afternoon is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
It will be the truth. Yes.
Do you swear the testimony will be the truth?
It will be the truth. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. You can be seated. If you can state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Pete Eyre. Last name is E-Y-R-E.
Sure. And again, since you're representing yourself, if you want to respond factually, again, this is not a time for legal argument that's going to be done at the conclusion of this proceeding. But if you want to address any of the factual allegations against you, please go ahead and do so.
All right. I was, as y'all know, one of the 6 people included in this preliminary injunction. I was a bit surprised by it, seeing as I don't choose to allocate my time to Robin Hooding. It's not that I'm opposed to it. I think it's a peaceful action, and it's a free speech issue. And just as if somebody takes issue with a police employee who might be kidnapping and caging someone for victimless action, I see the Robin Hooders as a peaceful way to just, express their dissent or maybe the preference for a better alternative than how property enforcement is currently structured. I don't believe I've ever heard any of my friends named in this preliminary injunction say we have to get this person or that person, just as it's. So I want to make that clear. It's not a personal thing against anybody, whether it was any of you 3 individuals or anybody else in those positions. I think, like, if these individuals, co-defendants of mine, think that it's an effective tactic and it's a peaceful tactic, no one's yet testified that there's been any initiation of force upon them, any physical force and things like that. Admittedly, people have expressed stress and frustration, which I understand. If I was in your situation, maybe I would as well, but that's not tantamount to a criminal activity, and thus to try to pursue the restraining of someone's free speech and their rights is ludicrous, in my opinion. So to go back, I was surprised to learn that I was named as preliminary injunction. Alan mentioned, he noted the term in the background, and maybe that's the perception, but I can't control what other people's perceptions are of my activities. It's just that's just what's up. I mean, on the affidavit, there's 3 parking enforcement officers, and only one of whom named me in this preliminary injunction, and the statements made about the rationale for my involvement involved me using a radio a couple times to indicate to my friends the whereabouts, and asking a question that was declined to have a conversation, which I respected. So, to try to say that my location and proximity to any public employee when they're operating on money that's taken from other folks is it's ridiculous. It's why I call this legal land, because I shouldn't have to waste hours of my time and to come here and try to justify myself and to clear my name, because there wasn't ever any attempt made by anybody to approach me and say, hey Pete, we prefer if you don't do this and it's kind of getting to us or anything. It's just, next thing I know, I'm told to show up at legal land. So I don't really understand why I'm here. There's been no objective evidence of pointing to my involvement with Robin Hood, I believe someone, Alan, I believe, maybe it's Mr. Bauer, sorry, mentioned, how we self-define or whatever, but I mean, that's a collective term. I don't self-define it as a Robin Hood, and I take, I take an objection to that you, sir, would place anybody, you would categorize anybody like that, not view people's actions as their own and not ascribe their actions to somebody else. Individuals are responsible for their actions. So that's all I'd say. Again, I mean, if you can point to a victim or someone I harmed, please do it, and I'll try to make it right, but I know I didn't do anything wrong.
Cross-examination.
I call you Peter. Peter, what's your educational background?
terms can you specify?
When you go to high school?
I mean, well, education, I hope, is, I'm 33 now, so hopefully 33 years of education. I'm try to learn every day. That's what it's about.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Minnesota.
Minnesota? Graduate?
Sure.
Good. Have any college?
Yep.
Where did you go to college?
I went to undergrad in Minnesota, went to grad school in Illinois.
Okay. University of Minnesota or where?
I started there. I went to Mankato State University, Mankato.
Okay. And you said some master's work or a degree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did 2 years of a master's, law enforcement and justice administration at Western Illinois University.
And you have a degree?
Well, I did all the coursework, but I didn't. It's a long story, but it's a story with the thesis board. The thesis was proposed and sent out and returned and submitted in a time frame, but the thesis committee, the chair had some time schedule issues, and after jumping through some hoops a number of years later to bring my thesis to a satisfactory conclusion, there were still time issues on his end, and eventually I just said it's not worth. I know I did the work, and I'm not going to continue to allocate my scarce time to try to justify to this guy, so I just proceeded to move on. So to answer your question, I've done all the work necessary for that, yes.
For a criminal justice degree in a master's?
That's correct. Law enforcement and justice administration.
Have you ever worked as a law enforcement officer?
I haven't gotten paid to work in law enforcement. I've done an internship with St. Paul Police, and I've done, other related things.
Have you had bad experience in law enforcement?
I haven't. I've had negative experiences with some individuals who work as police employees.
In New Hampshire?
Yes.
What is this cop block? What is cop block all about?
Cop Block's a decentralized project. People who advocate for police accountability, who believe badges don't grant extra rights.
Are you? What is your affiliation with Cop Block?
I'm just one of the many people involved with the decentralized project. It's more of an idea than an organization, if that makes sense.
So you were, who set up this keencopblock.org?
I set it up. Well, yeah, I set it up.
Okay. You maintain that website?
I post content. I'm one of the content contributors there.
How long has it been going on? Approximately.
A year maybe. Who knows?
And is this supportive of law enforcement? That is keencopblock.org. Is it supportive of law enforcement or anti-law enforcement? How do you?
Well, again, I'm just one individual involved with Cop Block. It's decentralized, so I'm only speaking for myself here, not anybody else. I personally support people who prefer pretty peaceful coexistence, peaceful interactions, and I recognize there's. So to answer your question, no, I'm not anti-law enforcement. I'm pro accountability and responsibility, and I see that issues that are all too often surrounding police employees of double standards are brought about by the perverse incentives that are built into that institution, which is based on violence. It says this group of people has a right to steal from this other group of people to protect them. So once that double standard is established, people might harken back to the peace officer of yesteryear, but once you allow for that double standard, it grows into what we have today, which is more of a police state. And so my goal is to reach out to current police employees. There's a Welcome Leos page at copblock.org to reach out to current police employees and say, hey, if you're a good police employee and people would volunteer and you're providing a good service and you prefer not to work with heavy-handed colleagues or corrupt people, then people would voluntarily hire you to provide that service because there is a demand for safety and security. So at the same time, while trying to reach out to current police employees, I hope to share ideas with other people to help empower them so that they know their rights and they know that somebody just doesn't have the right to control them based on their title. I don't believe in arbitrary authority. I believe in earned authority. And so I'm just trying to share ideas. That's what I try to do.
Do you respect the law and the jobs that the 3 parking enforcement officers are tasked to do on a daily basis? Are you do you support that, or are you against that concept?
I mean, you're getting at a deeper question. Ultimately, I think it's a property rights issue, and if the business is on Main Street, for example, they have an incentive, obviously, to not have the parking spots filled up by derelict cars left there, abandoned for weeks. They have an incentive to have timely turnover, so customers can get in their stores and to handle situations, keep the street clean and stuff like that. I would think that's a property rights issue, and that could better be addressed, not from a institution that claims a coercive monopoly that says we have the sole ability to provide this good or service, but through competition. So yes, I would think there's a need for this type of services that these three individuals use. I would just think that they could be provided more efficiently and through other mechanisms.
So you're supportive of the parking enforcement officers doing their jobs on a daily basis then?
Well, I respect them as individuals, but I prefer that any person, there's a number of other people in this room who have badges on or sitting to my left who are, at the end of the day, their salaries paid for by money taken from other people, and I don't think that's that's not conducive to a free society. I think that law, for example, the idea of a rule of law is false, because it says that some people have the authority to write up text on paper and then to interpret it. So the incentive is for them to protect their own, to conflate legislation as law, to say more actions that were once legal are illegal. Those are the built-in incentives. So again, to answer your question, there would be a demand for people to have a safe, clear streets, but the question is how could it be better provided?
Well, do you agree with this sentiment? Quote, "It would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. People who own businesses downtown instead of city government should own the parking spaces." Do you agree with that? Can we read it again? Can we read it again?
Sure.
It would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. Do you agree with that concept?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I don't agree with, so shutting down, that to me, evokes like someone flipping a switch or from the top down saying you're shut down or this agency is no more. I prefer to work from the bottom up, sharing ideas. So I think these institutions are built on people's the authority they grant them, and so it would be eroded one mind at a time, as it were.
You know that Mr. Freeman espouses that kind of a concept, don't you? You know that Mr. Freeman has said it would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. You've heard him say words to that effect, haven't you?
I don't want to speak. I don't want to answer in the affirmative if I don't specifically recall an instance where he said that in my presence.
But you've heard him say that in not so many words, or in as many words, haven't you?
I've heard him.
1 second, there's an objection.
Objection, relevance. First of all, I don't understand why this witness remains the party in this case. There's no evidence of any significant involvement on his part. But again, that's ultimately an issue that the city's going to have to decide whether to withdraw or to hold on to act. But even assuming at this point that he's off the party, technically he clearly is, I don't understand how any differences between his ideology and that of another defendant here has any bearing whatsoever on establishing any of the elements of the claim that the city of Keene needs to establish against him.
If that was off for a different purpose, then you can respond to that.
Well, it's very relevant both to the concept of tortious interference with employment relationships as well as the conspiracy theory.
The objection's overruled.
So, Mr. Peter, you would like to see the city parking enforcement shut down in some manner over a period of years or time, wouldn't you?
I mean, I'd ask you to define what the city of Keene is.
Excuse me?
I said I'd ask you to define what the city of Keene is. I've heard that referenced a number of times, and I don't know what the city of Keene is.
Well, I mean, the city of Keene is a political body of government, isn't it? That employs people to work for the social good of the rest of the citizens and out-of-staters.
Would you say what's been going on has been for the social good of the community? I mean, I would ask you, can you point to a contract?
This is not a dialogue back and forth. This is not a question where you both pose questions. If you have an objection to the specific question that's posed, we can deal with it. But if you don't understand the question, you can ask for it to be clarified. But this is not a time for you to ask questions of Attorney Bauer.
So, would you answer my question?
Yeah, I mean,
I
can't answer that question based on the responses you're looking for, because I don't believe that the city of Keene has any legitimacy upon which your question is based.
Okay, let's assume that the city of Keene has the lawful authority to regulate parking and safety. Can we assume that just for the sake of this discussion? You don't have to agree with it, but can we assume it?
I don't want to allow myself to be pigeonholed into a paradigm that I don't think makes sense. I don't want to believe an institution based on violence should exist, and I don't want to perpetuate it by buying into it.
Okay, let's try this. These three folks right here, you know Lynn and Jane and Alan, don't you?
I mean, I've had a conversation with Alan that was expressed. Lynn and Jane, I honestly, up to a few weeks ago, I didn't know who Linda and who Jane were. I knew the names, but I have not interacted with them to the extent that I was on a personal basis and that I would be able to recognize them and call them out by name. So,
you know they work for the city of Keene, right?
Sure.
And you know that their jobs are to read meters, chalk tires, and basically enforce the parking laws and regulations in the city of Keene. You know that, don't you, Peter?
Well, I also know their job is
just
supposed
answer
to...
my question first, and then you can throw in whatever you want. You know that, don't you?
I know their job is also entail providing, aiding the public, and that's not happened. I know things like that haven't been done, so I wouldn't give you an affirmative to the question you're asking as you see.
And this concept about shutting down parking enforcement, that's something that you agree with, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, I'm not. The question you're asking doesn't allow me to answer with my own thought on the issue, on the larger question.
Well, let's do the specific question. You would agree and you would espouse to shut down parking enforcement, wouldn't you?
Your Honor,
I'm so tired of asking it too, John, but I got to get an answer.
Objection. First of all, it was asked and answered, and the witness answered the question directly. But I have a second objection, Your Honor, which is this type of ideological interrogation, which under the First Amendment, the courts are not supposed to be getting into. I mean, the issue here is not what this gentleman's ideas are. I mean, the laws don't vary, if you believe in the laws, don't vary depending on the ideology.
I agree with that the issue of what people's ideas or beliefs are is not the issue before the court. The issue before the court really is and specifically, I think Attorney Bowers is going there to try to establish some link in the conspiracy allegation or some allegation along those lines. I understand your point. I do not mean this to turn this into a discussion about or a debate about what people's individual political beliefs are. That is not what I intend from this hearing.
Or I'm here on an employment issue that has something to do with overlapping issues of rights. So back to you, Mr. Iyer. With regard to my questions, it would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. People who own businesses downtown instead of the city government should own those parking spaces. Agree?
I agree that's the text on that paper. I don't know what else I'm agreeing to.
Is that part of why your business, your organization, is part of this card, which has been marked as Exhibit 4?
I can't, again, it's definitely not a business, and I'm speaking for myself, not an organization. And as for this particular quote that you referenced, again, it's part of a larger question. I mean, I would say, yes, like property owners should have the say on how the property gets used, and that would create the proper incentives for them to employ people who provide this service that the parking enforcement officers are doing now.
Well, don't you recognize that the city streets are not private property, they are public property?
Yeah, hence my constant harkening back to this is part of a bigger question.
Mm-hmm. And the bigger question is the social compact, isn't it? That we all live together in an organized society and we give up some rights in order for everybody to benefit the whole. Isn't that, you agree with that, don't you?
I've not signed that contract. Can you show it to me?
So let's get back to keencopblock.org. That's your website, isn't it?
It's, again, Cop Block's decentralized. There's over 140 groups, Cop Block, Peaceful Streets listed at copblock.org. They're all decentralized. Everybody's responsible for their actions. If I go out and do something wrong, it doesn't mean everybody else involved isn't wrong. And again, Keen Cop Blocks is one of many groups of a lot of people who advocate the simple fact that nobody has extra rights. We're all people, and you know, I mean, to get to the larger question, you know, you here yourself are being paid for by money stolen from Keene taxpayers, and so, I mean, that's how I view the situation. And so to say let's shut it down, you know, what I'm trying to do is be involved with a peaceful evolution where people
evolution
are
or revolution? Evolution.
An evolution.
Okay.
It's peaceful. Yeah. It's about ideas, because ideas have consequences. And right now, bad ideas are allowing these violent institutions to exist, to perpetuate, and to cage millions of people who haven't caused any victim. You know, and if you know, what would happen if I don't come here today? Some men with guns would potentially come after me at some point, and that's that violent institution at work, and I don't want to support that.
I'm going to shift gears for a second. I'm going to come back to what we were just talking about. I want to ask you, what do you do for work?
Can you clarify by that? What you mean by that?
How are you employed?
What does employed mean?
How do you obtain money for wages?
I mean, if people think I create value, they might, you know, I have no W-2 job, if that's what you're asking.
You pay taxes?
I try to live simply, and that's what I do.
You pay taxes?
I don't want to fund a violent organization.
Why don't you answer my question?
I just answered the question, so.
Do you pay taxes?
Your Honor.
Okay, I think I do have a little concern here. We're getting into an area that Mr. Iyer is here without counsel. I'm a little concerned about his Fifth Amendment rights, quite frankly.
Well, I'll withdraw that. I'm trying to establish, don't you believe, Peter, that these three folks who are employees have the right to work without being subjected to a harassing, hostile work environment? Can you and I agree at least on that?
Not necessarily. I would say, you know, I'm involved with Cop Block because I see police employees as the teeth of this bad idea of the state.
We're talking about these people.
Right, I'm trying to draw an analogy, a parallel between police employees who, if I see somebody out there, you know, I know if I were stopped, I'd want someone to come and be there to create an objective record through a video camera, just as I would try to do that for them. And, you know, and a similar example to a lesser, you know, so I wouldn't say a police employee has any right not to be frustrated or whatever term you just noted it. And, you know, similarly, these three individuals, you know, I'm not, again, it's not a personal thing, it's they're working for this institution that has all these misallocations and, you know,
Are you done?
sure.
With regard to this card, there's no doubt that you are copblock.org, aren't you? I mean, you talked about it, you know, there's a lot of people, but CAC is your organization, isn't it?
No, that's
your
not correct.
website, not it?
No, that's not correct.
That's not your website?
I am not copblock.org. I am at keencopblock.org. That's not correct.
Did you put the website up?
I put Keene Cop Block up.
Okay. So how does, what arrangements have you made with Ian or Graham or the other defendants in terms of putting your name on this card?
I don't know. It ended up on the card. I wasn't involved with the creation of the card.
Did you say, hey, yeah, that's what, you've seen this card before, haven't you? You've seen this card before, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. You've never raised any objection to you being affiliated with the activities that have been undertaken in which this card is used. You haven't objected, have you, to anybody?
Right. Again, Cop Block's decentralized, and
Answer my question first.
I raise objection.
Have you raised objection with any of the defendants about being associated with this card?
With what being associated?
With your KeenCopBlock.org.
It's not my organization, sir.
So you have a radio. Have you called Garrett on your radio?
Probably.
Have you called Mr. Freeman on your radio?
Probably.
Have you called Mr. Carlson on your radio?
It's Colson.
Colson, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure I've probably talked to the other 5 folks lumped together collectively as Robin Hood on my radio at some point. Not necessarily related to Robin Hood activities, but just to say, hey, what's going on, or hey, I'm over here. I mean, nothing criminal.
And you've also talked on your radio to the 5 other defendants somewhere along the line about where the parking enforcement officers are too, and asked.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
Or I would say no, I know I haven't talked to each of them individually about the locations of the parking enforcement officers.
Haven't they called you and asked where they are? Have you seen any?
No.
And you've not called any of the other folks, other defendants, and told them where the parking enforcement officers are?
No, maybe I misspoke or you misheard me. I said I have not called them all in totality about the locations of these individuals.
I'm sorry, I didn't parse that out as you did. You haven't called all 5 of them at the same time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I haven't called each of them individually either.
But
I haven't. If you're trying to get at my use of the radio, the incident that Alan had brought up about me sitting outside the post office, for example, I was out on a walk and decided to sit on a bench and get some sun as I read a book, and then I heard someone yell, and I tried to figure out what was going on, and I see someone waving. Here I am out the window, and I see Alan drive around the circle. So I say, "Hey, Alan's on South Main by the post office." You know, that's the extent of that. I don't go out and looking for the parking enforcement employees to learn to ascertain the locations and to transmit that on. No.
But you have on occasion, haven't you? On occasion.
I have admitted to that, have I not?
I really can't understand whether you've admitted to it or not.
Maybe you should listen, sir.
Okay, well, there's a lot of discussion going on. I'm
Okay,
trying to listen.
let's keep it to question and answers.
So my next question is this. Do you have any of these cards that Exhibit 4?
I don't believe so.
Have you ever had any in your pocket or in your possession?
Potentially.
Potentially. And have you potentially placed them on vehicles?
No, I never have.
Have you handed them out?
No.
Is there anything with regard to activities against the parking enforcement officers on your website?
Oh, again, which website? It's not my website, sir. It's Cowboys Centralized.
Yeah, I said on the website.
There's a Robin Hood page at Keene Cop Block.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you say that you really haven't been participating too much? You would agree then, wouldn't you, to stay 30 feet back from each of these people and not engage in any touching or taunting or obstructing or detaining or hindering or impeding or blocking them or intimidating them in any way while they do their jobs? If you had not engaged in those activities, as you say, then you wouldn't have any objection to staying 30 feet back, would you?
Objection, relevance.
Okay, I'm going to piece out your question. I would not, and I have not, and I don't foresee myself in the future engaging in an action that detains somebody. Because to me, if it's an initiatory force, I would not do that to anybody. if I see somebody, for example, out on the street beating up some people, I might try to detain them and say, you know, defuse the situation, yes. So I'm not going to come to some absolute statement with you, but as to the first part of your question, is it an issue for me to stay 30 feet from these individuals? I would most definitely not be willing to accept that, because that would, you know, why would I want to, I'm not harming anybody by being in the proximity. I'm not victimizing anybody. I will definitely not set that precedent and be complacent with the claimed right usurpations that Thomas Mullins and the rest of y'all are trying to do.
So you would agree then not to be within 30 feet of the 3 PEOs
No.
and taunt them?
Sir, I don't.
Listen to my question. Let's just take it one step at a time. You would agree not to taunt them within 30 feet, wouldn't you?
No. It's my free speech right if I want to. It depends what your definition of taunt is as well. But again, my purpose is not to cause anybody. I don't go out with a goal in mind to cause someone frustration or stress. But if I see someone wronging another, then yes, I will call them out. And if that call makes a certain police employee frustrated, or they consider that subjectively to be a taunt, then so be it. But I'm going to speak my mind, because I feel like if you don't, then if that's allowed to get away from it, it becomes difficult to do so in the future when those rights claims are you know, made even more so.
I have no questions.
I do have, I'm sure I have a couple questions. Sir, I just want to make sure that I understand your position factually on some of the allegations, because you've said a couple of times in hearings that you feel that you know, obviously you take issue with because you've said this several times with the action overall, but you feel in particular to involve you is not correct, because you've had no involvement in the activities that are complained of. If you could just elaborate as to why you feel that you in particular should not have been named in this action.
I think it's pretty clear. There was 3 individuals, park enforcement officers, who stated, you know, 5 to 6 people, and only one of the 3, Alan, who just testified, noted myself, and the overview of the interactions we've had, the number and the type have, you know, definitely not equated to me being in the wrong for anything. You know, none of these folks have done anything. But I most certainly, I mean, none of these folks, to my knowledge, obviously I haven't been around all of them while they're out doing whatever. I can't speak to everything they do, but to my knowledge, no one's, you know, caused anything that I would say is a criminal action. Therefore, there's no claim anybody can make to say you have to make me whole because you harmed me. And that's most certainly myself. I don't, you know, I'm online, I'm doing other things, and then I get all this paperwork saying I have to show up, and for what? You know, it's guilt by, I mean, it's ridiculous.
And the reason I don't go in there is because one of the very first things she said when you took the stand this afternoon was that you chose not to be involved in the activities of the Robin Hooders. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood. Was that in fact your testimony?
I mean, I support them. I just prefer to allocate my time to other activities.
So to the extent they've been involved in, for lack of a better term, Robin Hooding, you haven't, other than the occasion that you talked about, and perhaps some contact with some of the others regarding location, you deny any involvement in Robin Hooding activity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a factual statement. There's been no other testimony or objective evidence pointed to demonstrate otherwise.
And I was just asking you whether you specifically deny any direct involvement in their activities.
Sure. I mean, the extent of my involvement has been, I'm happy to state, and I have stated, and it's come to, you know, come out here today. So that's the extent of my involvement.
Any further questions from either counsel? Anything further that you want to say of a factual matter, Mr. Ryer?
I mean, I just encourage the people who work for the city that are involved in this to think about, I mean, just, this, obviously the motions are set in gear, but just in the future, I hope you would speak out when you see a lot of ridiculous things happening, you know, about allocation of funds and mischaracterizations of people and things like that. I mean, we're all humans, and we want to look out for each other. We don't want to create these divisions perpetuated by, you know, claims of authority and things.
You step down. I think it's now quarter.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.